we're happy for our art that we love to be, for lack of a better term, a bit hodgepodge. It doesn't need to be perfect. Life's not perfect. So, yeah, it was more like, let's hang our art and find the best spot for it later on.
Hi, I'm George, the co-founder of Bluethumb. I'm joined by my colleague Amy. Welcome to the Art in My Home podcast.
We uncover the surprising stories from the art collections of unexpected guests.
Today's guests are Zoe Rubino and Emilio Scalzo, the powerhouse duo behind Poodle Bar and Bistro, one of Melbourne's most iconic venues. Zoe and Emilio, thanks for coming on.
Oh,
Thank
thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
us.
We thought we'd start by asking you about your new house and how you're in the final stages of redesigning it. Can you tell us a bit about the process and how you've approached to styling and art in the renovation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've lived together in that house in Fitzroy for 13 years.
Oh, really?
It's had a few different eras. It's been a share house, and then for the last, 8 years, it's been just the two of us. Mm-hmm. So it's a Victorian terrace. It was built in
1860.
1860. Wow. We originally bought the house off of a furniture designer, Mark Tuckey. So a lot of white walls, a lot of open spaces. And then we decided we really love Fitzroy and we wanted to stay in the area. So during COVID, when everyone was stuck in their house, I think everyone wanted to redesign their house. So we're at the tail end of what has been a very long renovation and we're about to move back in.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. That's so exciting.
Amazing. Mark Tuckey had that place on Johnson Street.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, Johnson and God, just
So
around
he
the
would be able
corner
to
from the
walk.
house.
Yeah,
Oh,
he did a
cool.
great job with the renovation and he left a lot of his beautiful furniture in the house as well.
Did he
as part of the
really?
sort of negotiation. So, look, it has been a beautiful house and we just sort of decided that it just needed an upgrade, really, over time.
We want to have a family. We want to, have roots in Fitzroy. The house is just around the corner from our restaurant, so it was time for a facelift.
Yeah, we wanted it to sort of become uniquely ours and not Mark Tuckey's vision, our
Yeah.
vision. So, we sort of committed to renovating the place and future-proofing it for a young family. And so, we're excited to get cracking on that chapter.
Awesome.
So we teamed up with Inika Hutter of Studio Co & Co, who was part of the team that designed Poodle a little while ago, and then she started her own creative design business. So she designed Rocco's, which is our second restaurant, and then also took on our home project.
Wow, and how's the difference between when you originally started Poodle and renovating a restaurant? How's the difference between that and doing your own home?
It's very different. I guess when you're designing a restaurant, you're thinking about other people, When you're designing your home, you like to think you're thinking just about yourself mainly. So, I think the difference is mainly sort of ensuring that you're keeping the house homely. And with the restaurant, it was just so many more considerations involved. You wanted to make sure that you were on trend, appeasing people, not isolating people with certain design decisions. Yeah, we found them very different.
I also think with Poodle, it was an absolute blank canvas. Even though they were Victorian terrace buildings, it was an empty shell when we started, so we could do what we want from scratch. Whereas with our house, it's been lived in. We don't want it to feel too different. We've also been collecting art for over a decade, so we're still bringing our old furniture and artwork into the house. So the house is more of an evolution, whereas Poodle was starting from scratch.
And so you worked with Inika on both?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Inika worked for Bergman & Co., fantastic designers in Melbourne who took on the Poodle project, and they did a wonderful job. Shortly afterwards, Inika started her own firm, Studio Co & Co, and she's the best in the biz. Also, we sort of never really questioned whether we'd use her for our house or not.
She's now become a dear friend.
Yeah, and she
That's good.
Studio,
The process must have gone well then.
yeah, Studio Co & Co designed our second restaurant, Rocco's Bologna Discoteca, also on Gertrude Street, just down the road. And, both venues were shortlisted for various design awards. She's wonderful at what she does. We have a great relationship with Inika. We know each other's strengths. We're not afraid to say, no, I actually had this in mind instead, or...
She also gets weird. We get weird together.
She's happy to have fun and be sort of along the ride with our sort of weird, quirky tastes in things as well. So, it's been a wonderful marriage with Inika.
Yeah, wicked. And so with the home kind of renovation with her, and you've got 10 years of art, you said, sort of collecting, how did art fit into that process? Was it design and then we'll put the art in after, or were you considering pieces as you go, or how did that work?
It was actually the former. I think we sort of tend to have the philosophy of keeping it rather separate. I don't particularly like or subscribe to the idea of matching the art with the room necessarily, or sort of the height of a particular piece of art mirroring the tall boy in the middle of the room, or that colourway clashes with the colourway of the couch. I just think that limits you, you know. So we weren't really thinking about the art along the way. We're happy for our art that we love to be, for lack of a better term, a bit hodgepodge. It doesn't need to be perfect. Life's not perfect. So, yeah, it was more like, let's hang our art and find the best spot for it later on.
You also, we find a piece of art that we fall in love with. We want to buy it. I don't want to consider where it's going. We want it in our home because we love it. And it, like Emilio said, it might not be perfect for the space, but if you love it, it's your house. You should be able to hang it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think anyone's art collection should really be like one theme and one colour palette and then it all just float. Like, nah, make it a bit more exciting.
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk about a couple of the pieces in your collection. So I guess we might just start with the Mark Whalen Tangled chairperson.
Wall relief, yeah.
Wall relief. Yeah, it's fantastic. And a lot of your works, they're colour and punchy and graphic. So this one's like really caught our eye to start with.
Yeah, well, Mark is a Sydney-born and raised but LA-based artist, and he's doing really great things at the moment. He sort of started doing these very meticulously painted, intricate works on tiles, and has sort of over the last decade evolved into sort of mainly a sculptural artist that still dabbles in painting, definitely. But he has become a dear friend of ours, despite the distance that we are apart. And that particular artwork, it's just so beautiful. It's so vibrant. The colours sort of need to be seen in person to be believed, really. There's just something about them. Yeah, it almost feels like it's buzzing in the room or something. It glows. And we just love his style. Mark's works sort of contain these weird Mark people, I call them, these sort of, you know, genderless, almost robotic beings that, you know, always have these sort of exaggerated expressions on their faces that sort of represent the gamut of human emotions. But his works are so striking. They're so meticulous. They're crafted so beautifully, and to see them in person is just a whole nother thing. So we're really proud to have that artwork in our house.
How did you come across Mark's works in the first place?
Mark is one of Emilio's best friends. We met him over a decade ago. We had a bit of an unofficial after party of the Melbourne Art Fair at our house. It was a particular window of time where I was between jobs. I was finishing up one, had 2 weeks off, so it just seemed like a good idea when it was at the exhibition. Is it the exhibition building in Carlton? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And just to have everyone down the road back to our house. And it was, you know, serendipitous, but they were, along with a few other artists, they were in Melbourne for a few days. We just had this like love-in of every day. We'd go out for dinner, we'd have drinks, we'd go back to the art fair, and after that, you know, Mark would stay at our house, we'd visit him in Los Angeles. It's just been evolved into this really beautiful friendship.
Awesome. I love an art kick on it.
It was just a revolving door for 3 days.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Are you relieved it's moved locations now, so you can have a bit of a break?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wicked. And you sent through another sort of interesting, it's not really sculptural, but it's maybe 3D-ish, but a kind of round work by Cleon Peterson.
Yeah.
I didn't know the artist, but I sort of looked him up after.
It's a wild journey to deep dive in.
Yeah. The themes of his are sort of super intense, I guess. But yeah, tell us about that.
Well, Cleon is or used to be a stablemate of Mark's, actually. So that connection sort of came through Mark. From memory, we went to one of Mark's shows in Los Angeles. 2019, we went to one of Mark's shows in Los Angeles. Thought it might have even been a bit earlier than that, but she's always right and I'm wrong. And we met Cleon there. Cleon's got a really interesting story. His works are sort of more of a, you know, almost graphic novel nature. And again, similar to Mark, you know, the characters that pop up in all of Cleon's works are sort of uniquely Cleon's as well. And he's got a very sort of distinctive, as soon as you see a Cleon work, you know it's Cleon style. And he sort of plays with this idea of, humans, they're violent works, let's face it. They
Couldn't have it in our bedroom.
yeah, it's not a bedroom. It actually sort of is the first work that you sort of see when you come into the house.
Sets the vibe.
Yeah, it sets the vibe. But it's this idea of sort of corruption, the sort of fragmented world that we live in, and clashing ideals, and people sort of clashing over the hierarchy of the sort of modern crazy world that we live in. I'm not sure if I've represented that well enough, but that's sort of what I take from it.
Yep.
They're all monochromatic. They're all really quite striking to look at, and again, just beautifully technically painted.
I'd love to see it in person to understand the scale of it as well. But
You're more than welcome to.
thank you.
Yeah, it's sort of
Like a metre.
a bit more than a metre.
Yeah.
Directly underneath it is a heater for
Okay,
reference
cool, yeah.
of size.
Yeah, sweet.
Looking at your works, I know you guys, you're clearly not like afraid of colour or graphics. So when you're looking for artworks or just looking at artworks in general to purchase, is there anything that draws you in, or you're just like, as you were saying earlier, it's more like a feeling and a vibe? Is there, but when you're hunting for something, are you like, oh, I'd like a bold abstract kind of thing?
We're never really hunting for something, but we're always passively looking, if that makes sense.
I like that.
And I think we have like a unified approach to, it needs to be a little bit weird. It needs to be like not confronting, but it needs to evoke emotion when you look at it. We don't love buying passive artworks. We want something that make us feel in our home.
I think we like a lot of work. It's hard not to like a lot of work. Sort of making that distinction between something you like and something you actually want to add to your collection is a tough one, That's the world we live in, right?
Absolutely.
So as sort of Zoe said, I've always thought, there's a lot of artists that sort of across their career sort of tend to tick a lot of the boxes in terms of perfecting their craft or perfecting form or writing a great song. So once those boxes are ticked, I've always thought that the real genius is when someone can add a little wink in the eye or a tongue in the cheek, add a little bit of humour or a little Easter egg in a work. And often, if there's a work that we already really like, that'll be something that if we notice, we sort of turn to one another and say, oh, we kind of need to live with this. It's like that sort of almost, I wouldn't say taking the piss, but taking the piss a little bit, taking the piss out of the viewer or even their own work. That's sort of almost like a little secret that you're sort of let in on and that maybe not everybody notices.
Yeah.
That's sort of sometimes what drags us over the line with the work,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because
Yeah.
I like when I'm looking at art from a particular artist, I often will just have one or two, if they've got 30 in a collection, there'll be like two that I'm like, these two. And the rest I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And so for you, it's like, it feels like there's one that's really got something extra.
Bit of cheek
Yeah.
or something.
Something's just really
Yeah.
let me dig at you or someone else.
Yeah,
All the work
exactly.
that makes you
Viewer
feel
or-
the most.
It's just sort of
Okay, yeah.
that sort of like acute self-awareness that you can almost not take yourself so seriously and almost have a little bit of fun with it. I like that because it's
Yeah.
that sort of next level of sort of articulating what you're good at almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And do you guys, we have this issue a lot from people we've had on the podcast. Do you agree on artworks?
Mostly.
Because most people don't. Most
disagree.
people don't.
I
think there is a massive intersection between our tastes. I think we share a similar vision and we know what we both like. There's definitely, diverging paths in our taste. But I think, with shared finance, we're married, we live, work and parent together. There's definitely an overlap in things that we like. And, sometimes Emilio might buy a painting for him and I might buy a painting that's just for me that aren't each other's tastes. But 99% of the time, I would say we definitely are in agreement.
Do you have any regrettable artworks?
No.
No?
Okay.
That's good. That's
No.
I
good.
mean, earlier, before we were collecting art, I might have bought, some vintage prints or some things from the op shop that
Yeah.
were questionable just to decorate the house. But
we
I
put a
think-
few of those on the street
Yeah.
recently.
But as an evolution, when we're talking about fine art and collecting artists, no regrettable decisions.
No. And I mean, things may change with time, but we don't buy for investment, definitely.
Convince ourselves that they're good investments to get the purchase over the line, and then
Yeah.
emotionally we wouldn't be able to sell them.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, I've never sort of considered parting ways with anything we've purchased, to be honest.
But we're running out of wall space.
Yeah,
That's the other thing, yeah.
And we'd loath to put something in storage. We buy art to look at it and to have it in our home. But there might come a time soon where we might have to make some articulated decisions about.
Or we
things
just start a
coming and
new
going.
restaurant, Zoe.
That's
So-
Why not? Tick, tick.
We had a guest last week talk about art on the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. One of the rooms.
Haven't got there
Concept.
yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your friend's house had, all along the
In
ceiling.
yeah.
We'll
In the
be chatting
bathroom.
about that on the way home.
Yeah. Where else can we hang things?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one is the bathroom. We're always like, do you have any artworks in your
The
bathroom?
Mark
So that Mark
Whalen
Whalen is
tangle,
above-
that's above the fireplace in our bathroom.
Yeah,
is
that,
it
that
now?
burgundy
That's cool.
wall is a fireplace in a bathroom.
Is it now?
Yeah, and
That
it's-
is an epic bathroom.
That's a cool
it is.
bathroom.
Yeah, it's a
And
cool
it's
bathroom.
handy that we know the artist who could say
He's
it would
like-
be okay.
Yeah.
with
I was just like,
community.
mate, I know this sounds weird, but I'm thinking of it's going to really pop against this burgundy wall. He's like, okay, take a photo. But it
happy to
does. It
have
looks
it there.
amazing.
Yeah,
though.
doesn't it just?
Yeah.
What a cool bathroom. Like fireplace. I've never seen that.
Yeah,
I guess
we're really
Victorian
lucky.
terrace.
Yeah, there's four. It's just one of those old terrace houses. So there's 4 fireplaces.
The house was a same size house, but it had more bedrooms. And then when Mark Tuckey renovated it, he turned one of the bedrooms into a bathroom, knocked out walls, so it's almost has a warehouse feel. It's only a 2-bedroom home, but it has quite open space.
Oh, it sounds beautiful.
Lovely.
Finding the right art for your home doesn't have to be overwhelming. Bluethumb's art advisory service is here to help, no matter your taste or budget. From a single piece to a collection, get expert guidance at no cost. Click the link in episode notes to start your journey with Bluethumb art.
Are there any artists on your radar to collect next?
Oh, too many.
So I'm going to give this a go. And apologies.
For listening?
Yeah, if I completely
If we tag
butcher
them.
this to everybody involved with this artist. But his name is Kazuhito Kawai. He's a Japanese ceramicist that creates these beautiful, intricate but very grotesque ceramic works that are really involved, absolutely incredible to sort of do a 360 circular view of one of them. Often bright colours, but also weird organic forms sort of feel like they're melting in on themselves. Really like him.
And like high metallic glaze, they're stunning.
Yeah.
Cool. How did you come across
Yeah.
him? Just online?
So my friend Mark Whalen,
we love Mark.
We love Mark.
we love Mark here. He has one of his works at his house in LA, and he often gets me onto artists. So yeah, have been eyeing him off from afar, and once we sort of get through the cyclone that is our current moving in, renovating, crazy
Recovering financially.
crazy season at work, corporate functions and lunches, life right now, we will sort of
Hosting, not going to.
Yeah.
hosting at our restaurants.
Working them, yes.
We will sit down and sort of have a little think. But another one would be a guy called Pedro, also an LA-based artist who does these really vibrant still lifes. He has this sort of very uniquely him distorted perspective and very incorrect sort of technically perspective in his artworks. But they just look so great. They're so
striking.
They're very softly painted. He'll often, it'll just sort of be often just simply a bowl of lemons or a stack of lobsters or just sort of a tablescape of food, but sort of integrates household items like nail clippers or an empty pack of cigarettes or, again, one of those artists that as soon as you see one of his artworks, you know it's him. And I would say finally, we just recently came back from Mexico and were fortunate enough to be taken through an exhibit of Robert Yanitz. He does these incredible, very expressive artworks, but very textural. Again, one of those works that you sort of need to see in person, where he sort of drags things like flour through the pigment across the painting and creates these sort of layers of textures. They're beautiful, and we were definitely umming and ahhing as we were
I'm
walking
coveting
through.
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's next.
You're thinking about dragging one back from Mexico?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't know the logistics
Hopefully.
of that.
Future us problems.
Yeah. I'll have to look him up. Robert Yanitz.
Yeah, we'll send you some links. If you
Yeah,
like.
yeah, please. Yeah, we'll like to tag all those artists.
Great.
For people looking to start their art collection, and you guys have been doing it for many years, what sort of advice would you give to someone looking to jump in and buy their first piece of artwork?
Start going to shows, see as much art as you can, go to art fairs, tell people that you really like their work. They might be really stoked with that. They might be happy to, make an artwork just for you. I think it's, without saying networking, just meet lots of people and see lots of art.
Yeah.
Yeah, artists are friends with other artists. Yeah, I think as Zoe said, don't be afraid to reach out to an artist you like on Instagram and tell them that you really like their stuff. You might strike up a friendship. Then you meet their friends. You might end up at the pub. After a couple of beers, you might sort of say to them, it would be great to have one of your artworks one day, and you might be surprised at how receptive they are to that. Like, I think just sort of surround yourself with art. Try and get involved.
We can't speak for buying art for investment's sake because we just buy things that we love to look at. But start small, buy things that you like, that challenge you a little bit, that you think is a little bit different to other things out there. Buy things that you like and start small.
Yeah, if buying for investment is something that you end up sort of aspiring towards, let that sort of come secondary to just enjoying art to begin with. I think surrounding yourself with art and collecting art is only going to want to make you collect it more if you're anything like me. So I think once you surround yourself with art, learn what you like, you start understanding the landscape, you start making relationships within the landscape, and then the investment side of things can certainly come from there.
Yeah. I love that advice. What about a 3-day kick on for an art fair as well?
Absolutely.
No comment.
If you can make it happen, do it.
Fantastic. So, a bit of a change of tack. Let's talk about Poodle, the iconic restaurant on Gertrude Street.
Always nice to hear that.
Yes,
Thank you.
it is. So, you've actually got a wall of illustrations there. Can you tell us about that? How it came about? What is it?
So I guess, and this will sort of sum up Poodle a little bit, and the art direction and illustration sort of side of Poodle. The inspiration for Poodle was some of these sort of old world grand bistros and steakhouses of Paris and New York. And what comes with that, of course, is finishes in marble and these beautiful big timber arches that we've got there. And as beautiful as that is, and as much as we enjoy sort of frequenting those venues overseas, it's not necessarily us at heart. So we were always very conscious that we wanted to soften that with the art on the wall, make it more playful, less serious, a bit more us, a bit more quirky, a bit more personality, something that made people feel like potentially have a bit of a laugh and allow themselves to maybe loosen the collar a little bit and just enjoy, have a good time. So art at Poodle definitely sort of consciously functioned in that way. So when it came to that wall, we actually did have a bit of help at the start of Poodle. There's a great creative agency, local creative agency called Weekdays, who do branding, but also helped us with some of the finishing touches at Poodle, the things that go on the wall. They created these beautiful mirrors that we still have both upstairs and down. And as we were sort of busy buzzing around, worrying about builders and finishing...
There's so much to do
Yeah.
when you're about to open a restaurant.
Finishing
it
the
was nice
project.
to delegate this job.
They were great at putting some brilliant local artists under our nose. And yeah, we sort of ended up landing on Shannon Rush as an artist to do that work for us. It was actually sort of a bit of a weird reverse brief where when we sat down and we were asked, like, what do we want for that wall? We sort of started with saying, what we don't want is what a lot of people would sort of expect in a venue like ours, like those big Campari posters or like, you know, those big framed Art Deco aperitif style posters. And so Shannon sort of took that and ran with it and sort of took the piss out of the Campari poster. So
Campari, but make it weird.
Yeah.
A bit strange and interesting. Okay.
So he sort of started churning out this almost stream of consciousness, these squiggles, these drawings, these little sort of cartoons, and just made heaps of them. And then we sort of hand-picked the ones that we loved. And there's some really great ones. Like there is this cartoon of this Beatles-esque rock band called the Camparis. And then there's like weird ones like Jim Carrey in the mask eating a meal and saying, "Somebody stop me." And so there's all these weird works. And it was just, for us, it was just really important, as I said earlier, to just soften that sort of luxurious, opulent fit out with just a bit of fun. And so that's where it sort of came from. And we thought, like, why not just bombard that wall with heaps of them? That's pretty much the story of it, I think. And yeah, as you said, it has sort of become like this iconic feature of the venue, which is lovely.
Also, the way they all together with the black and white is also a nod to like the New York style steakhouse where there's a caricature of famous people that have frequented the building. So the way they are on top is a little nod to that, but a little bit weirder.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, so it reminded me of a couple of places I went to, I think in LA maybe, you know, an old comedy place that's been going forever and it had the caricatures, and went to a place in Berlin that had a similar. And so, yeah, I was wondering if it was a throwback to...
A little.
Yeah, okay.
Have you had any like surprising artists come and do a doodle and you're like, oh my God, this is actually really good?
Well, yeah, the doodles as well, like, yeah.
Oh, the doodles at Poodle, yeah. So doodles at Poodle was sort of part of this, you know, you're sitting down. I mean, it was a long build, so I had a lot of time to think about things like branding and marketing and just all of the little things that we can offer on top of food, bev, and a fit out, you know.
So Emmy had played in America before, but the first tour that I went on, the last night in New York, we went to this old school American steakhouse called Keen's. And they had these notepads on the table. I think the steakhouse is like over 100 years old, and it's called Notes Taken at Keen's. And we still have the pad, actually. I found it in a box when we were unpacking the other day.
Cool.
And it was a nod to that, you know, and I think doodles rhyme so well with poodles, so it evolved into Doodles at Poodle.
Yeah, it was irresistible, that little rhyme. I was just like, can't help, we have to use this. Doodles at Poodle, it rhymes so well. And so, yeah, it was just a nod to those. Yeah, that steakhouse, it was sort of known for a lot of intellectuals over the years used to eat there. It's sort of a very famous steakhouse in New York. And so I guess that notepad, Notes Taken at Keen's, was sort of an ode to like people that you would have long lunches, probably over several bottles of wine, just sort of writing away and articulating their thoughts, and sort of it always stayed with us. And so that's our little nod to that.
Do you want to talk about your favourite doodle and what happened there?
Yeah, to tie back into your question, so we've got an Instagram account for Doodles at Poodle, so at the end of the week it's sort of this wonderful thing that I do, sort of flicking through the doodles from the week and trying to fish out a couple that might stand out above the rest, I guess.
A lot of the doodles are just people writing thank you or drawing cocks.
The big two.
Yeah, there's a lot of
So we sift through those.
there's a lot of phallic things on there.
Of course there is.
You know, there was this one that I encountered that was really different to the rest. You know, usually people just do squiggles or write us beautiful notes about how lovely the food was, which is always great to read. But this guy had sort of these nightmarish, cartoonish faces. And he'd also gone to the effort of like placing a $2 and a $1 coin under the piece of paper and like shade, you know how you shade over the top and leave the impression of the coin. And then he sort of signed it in an unusual way where he placed his credit card under it and shaded the name on the credit card. So sort of, and this will very rarely happen, but like all of a sudden I had this name. And I really liked this. I thought this was a really cool, eclectic artwork almost. Yeah. And so I looked him up, and lo and behold, he was in fact an artist. And in a sort of weird twist of fate, he now has like two of our favourite artworks at Poodle.
Yeah, either side of the bar.
Really?
Either side of, our beautiful bar at Poodle, these bookending artworks. And yeah, we love those artworks. They've got a real pride of place in the bar. And so we ended up sort of just from that doodle at Poodle sort of forming this relationship
Discovered
with him.
Yeah. Who's the artist?
His name's Nathan Markham.
Nathan Markham.
Yeah,
Cool.
local guy. It's a great artwork.
He's British,
artist.
but he's based in Melbourne.
Yeah. And what are the two artworks of? Like, can you describe it?
Like a chaotic waiter, like French-style classic waiter, like racing plates through, but there's movement in it because it's sort of the same image on repeat, so it looks like it's racing forward.
Yeah, it's very loosely figurative, but very sort of expressionistic. Lots of paint smearing.
Quite textured.
Very textured. They're beautiful to look at.
Gosh, people can come so far from doodles up here.
And yeah, so this idea that came at Keen's, you're on tour?
I
used to play in a band.
Yeah, okay, yes, Reptiles.
So,
I was carrying a bass around for
Heavy. I played bass.
Oh, nice. What bass do you play?
Gibson Thunderbird.
We love the
Yeah, the
Thunderbird.
old rock sound.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Big clunky thing.
Yes, yeah, it gives you a sore shoulder, but yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, they're heavy.
Okay. So, Emilio, you're a designer by
Yeah.
trade, yeah? And so...
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. Kind of by trade, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I studied graphic design.
Yeah.
I played music, which got in the way of me completing that degree,
yeah.
but practiced it for a while. Had a
Yeah.
little agency doing branding. And I tend to do the branding for the projects that we're involved in.
Yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
you did the branding for Poodle, and that was nominated for the Eat, Drink, Design Awards. And I assume you did the branding for Rocco's Bologna Discoteca as well?
Yes, I actually took out the top gong for that one.
Oh, you won. Oh,
Well done.
fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, so I mean, I love the branding process. I'm very passionate about it. I always sort of say that I've got a very unfair advantage because I've got the time to just focus on my thing and not get client feedback that sort of like squashes your vision and makes you pivot a different way. So I do things for myself, which I always think is just like a blessing.
And a curse, because you don't know when to stop or how far to take it. You can just
Yeah,
keep
it
on
can be a
going when
curse,
it's
it
right.
can keep you up at night. But it's also, I definitely see it as just being able to just design for myself is a pleasure. So, I was very lucky to sort of been nominated and shortlisted for the Poodle one and, won the Rock for Rocco's a year later. And,
But clearly sort of, the design and the restaurant and everything is kind of clearly wrapped up in, there's a broader kind of theme, and I guess that's probably part of the success of it, right?
People choose to dine out because it's a whole experience. It's more than just cooking at home or ordering Uber Eats. You're putting yourself in other people's hands for the evening, and even if you're not consciously aware of it, it's the design of the restaurant, it's the way the cutlery feel, it's the art on the wall, it's, the weight of the paper of the menu. It's everything curated together to form an experience. So design and art is such a big part of owning a restaurant.
I love that. This is a hard one, but if you could choose one artwork that would sum up Poodle in an artwork, could you do that?
I don't think so, actually. I think there are so many different artists represented at Poodle, and the art that we've chosen is like quite in contrast to the fit out of the building. And I think, we've got these Michelle Brumpasuth, I did look up her name, so I have said that correctly, porcelain poodles that are actually like meant to look like meringues, but they're soap dishes on the wall. We've got the Rush sketches. We've got, Reese Lee, clowns upstairs. I think they all play their part in curating this space that is a little bit weird and slightly challenging and just a little bit fun.
When I popped onto your website the other day, the main image is the crazy abstract poodle. Is that a painting? Is it?
Yeah,
Or?
so that's a series of 4.
Yeah.
And they form the backs of our menus. So we've got these A3 menus that sort of fold into 3. And as you open them, they're all this sort of variation of this weird, almost like Francis Bacon-esque poodle sort of dining at a restaurant table. They're AI generated.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a lot of fun with once somebody put the AI artwork generator in front of me. I had a lot of fun punching things in.
I'd get home from work and he had created
I was like mutant poodles.
Yeah, mutant poodles.
And then you click this one, make more of that.
Yeah, because then you can click one and say generate similar.
Yeah.
So
It's
Down
it's
a hole.
Rabbit Warren.
yeah. So whether I'm proud or not to say it's AI, it's AI. I'm going to be honest. It's not an artist that I can name drop. That's for sure.
It's yourself.
Can you claim that a
I
prompt
think
is
so,
your
yeah.
intellect?
I guess it's a curation.
George, you did a talk on this. What would you like to say?
I can't remember what I said. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, I was like, they're cool, actually.
People love those. Yeah. People love them.
Now, you've talked about Poodle. It has a lot of kind of throwbacks to different kind of classic themes, but like an interesting spin, I guess. Is there a trend you can see in hospitality or even sort of design for hospitality? Is there a trend you can kind of feel or see or expect at the moment or next year?
I don't want to talk about the economic climate, but I think that might temper the evolution of restaurants and the risk that people are taking in terms of what they'd like to open next.
Yeah, I think, and this is certainly not a new thing, I think it's something that we can all agree has been a trend for a little while, but I do think that the bar with good food is something that we're going to continue to see a lot of. So a place where you can eat and drink as much or as little as you want and be really comfortable with that, and the venue sort of catering for that, and that not necessarily being a surprise to anybody. So, the rise of the wine bar that has like an owner's personal touch
It's like the fall of commitment, like to being
Yeah.
able to walk into a venue undecided, you can have a wine, you're not tied to how much you want to spend, and it's just very casual and loose.
Yeah, you're not walking into like a really structured restaurant where you're forced to dine their way or the highway. You know, we were at the Good Food Awards a couple of weeks ago, and one of our favourite venues took out Best New Restaurant. And it's called Barolo. And, you know, the owners got up on stage to collect their award and say a few words. And they said, we thought we were opening up a bar, but they won Best New Restaurant, you know. So it's this sort of appreciation for a smaller space, a smaller menu perhaps, but really most importantly, the sort of lack of pressure to dine a particular way. Just have fun, have one drink. Have a plate of pasta, share it between two.
Yeah, if you want a pot of beer, you can have a pot of beer. If you want to open up a $300 bottle of Barolo, you can do that too.
Yeah. And did Rocco's kind of come from that thought, or?
That's a long-winded story.
Poodle, even though the fit out is quite opulent, it was really designed to have something for everyone. We wanted you to be able to walk into the bar and, you know, have a pot of beer and a burger at the time. Or if you had a table of 12, you could dine in the bistro and have a long lunch. You could go into the courtyard and it's sunny and a little bit more casual. It's quite a large venue, and by virtue of the fact it was a Victorian building, it had to have a lot of different pokey spaces. So we wanted every different space to make you feel differently.
I like that. What's on the horizon, guys? What do you have coming up next? You're very busy, so you might just want to focus on Poodle.
Break, is that?
I mean, you've moved house.
No, I don't know if we know how to have a break.
Our break from business has sort of coincided with the opposite of a break when it comes to sort of personal life. We have a young daughter, Gloria, who's just turned 2. And
she's turbo.
She's
the best,
she's
but
pretty
she's a
turbo.
lot.
She's our boss, we call her. And, that's, coincided with renovating the house and all the sort of twists and turns that's taken. So, our break from opening a new business has sort of coincided with not really having a rest. But in saying that...
We want to throw a few house parties now that we're moving into our house.
As you should, yeah.
We want to open another restaurant in 2025. We've decided that. We're talking about that at the moment.
But I dare say it will take longer than that because that's just how builds take.
Yeah. Yeah, whether it ends up being in 2025 or not is a different story. But we don't know what it is. We don't know where it is. But that's our intention.
It'll happen.
It'll happen.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So we're talking about that at the moment. But we've also got a couple of things on the go. We've got a skincare company called Dahl that's getting off the ground. I've got a beverage company called Sopra, which we're sort of increasing our range at the moment. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, incredible. Huge amount.
Yeah.
I'm dying
know
for
how to
you.
sit down. This is the longest I've sat down.
Yeah, this chair's really comfortable.
Yeah.
Could I fall
You're welcome
asleep?
to yes.
And we're right in the middle of the busy restaurant season as well,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So-
yes.
But it's nice to be busy, and we're really lucky to be busy and people choosing to spend their time and their money with us.
Yeah, it's this time of year. It's always good to see people who are sort of, they see the end of the tunnel. They end up having more fun. They're like, let's have that extra martini. It's nice to see smiles on faces and lots of laughter in the room. So we enjoy this time of year as well.
For sure.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, in light of how busy you are as well, thank you so much for coming
thank
on
you
Thank you
today.
for
guys.
coming,
It's been an
guys.
absolute pleasure talking
It's
to
been a
you.
real pleasure. Thanks a lot.
If you love art and hearing collectors' stories, please share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to follow the show, rate and review to help make the pod more visible. We acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional owners of the land we're recording on, and we pay respects to elders past, present and emerging.